Hey everyone, in Washington state, something really intense is happening in the housing market. It's like a perfect storm where two completely opposite crises are on a collision course. And, the fallout is hitting pretty much everywhere, from courtrooms to the state legislature. So let's break down exactly what's going on.
First, I want to start with just one number, 23,969. That is the record-smashing number of eviction lawsuits filed against tenants in Washington in a single year, 2025. I mean, it's the highest it's been in over a decade, and it's a huge red flag that something is seriously wrong with housing stability.
But then, at the very same time, you get this. This quote, it just captures the raw frustration, the fury of a landlord who felt completely trapped by the system. So right away, you can see this is not a simple story of landlords versus tenants. Oh no, it is way, way more complicated than that.
And that brings us to the big question for this entire explainer. How can both of these things be true at the same time? How can you have a historic eviction crisis while landlords are also saying the system is so broken they literally can't get people out of their properties? Let's dig in.
Okay, but before we go any further, it is absolutely crucial that we get our terms straight, because these words get thrown around a lot, but legally they mean very different things. A squatter is someone in an abandoned property. A trespasser is there without any legal right at all. That's a criminal issue. But a holdover tenant, and this is the one to remember, is someone who started with a legal lease, but it ended and they just won't leave. Getting that distinction is key to understanding this whole mess.
So let's start with the first side of this collision, just the massive number of people who are at risk of losing their homes.
Ever since the pandemic-era eviction protections ended, the numbers have just exploded. Look at this. In 2021, you had just under 4,000 filings. By 2025, that number just skyrocketed to nearly 24,000. It's a massive, massive jump.
So, seeing this unprecedented wave coming, Washington's lawmakers did something pretty groundbreaking. Back in 2021, they launched a program that was the first of its kind in the entire country, all to try and stop this tide of evictions.
It's called the Right to Counsel Program, or RTC. And the idea is actually pretty simple. Before this program, most landlords had lawyers, but almost no tenants did. So RTC gives free court-appointed attorneys to low-income tenants to try and level that playing field in the courtroom.
And, well, the results have been pretty striking. With an RTC lawyer, more than half of tenants, 56%, are able to stay in their homes. Only 15% actually end up getting formally evicted. That is a huge change from how things used to be. But that's not the whole story.
So now, let's flip the coin and look at the other side of this collision. Because while the state was rolling out these new tenant protections, a single case was unfolding that would become a national symbol for landlord frustration. This is the story of a landlord named Jaskaran Singh and his tenants, the Kims. And their case became this huge flashpoint, a perfect illustration for some of how a system meant to protect can actually be, well, weaponized.
Just take a look at this timeline. It's wild. The tenants pay 1 month's rent. The landlord then spends the next 2.5 years filing 3 separate eviction cases just to get his own property back. Every single time, the process was delayed or dismissed, dragging this thing out for 30 months. And by the time the tenants were finally gone, the landlord said he was owed over $136,000 in unpaid rent and fees. This one case became the absolute nightmare scenario that property owners fear the most.
So you're probably asking yourself, how on earth did this happen? Well, a huge factor was the role of the state-funded Housing Justice Project. They kept stepping in and paying the tenants back rent, which by law forces the court to dismiss the eviction case. Now, supporters say, hey, this is the system working. It kept a family from being homeless. But critics argue that all it did was reset the clock, letting the cycle of non-payment start all over again.
So you have these two colliding realities, record evictions on one side and these high-profile cases of alleged exploitation on the other. It's pushed the state to a breaking point, and it's led to two completely opposite ideas for how to fix it.
Right. So the fight has basically moved out of the courtroom and into the state capitol and city halls, where lawmakers are scrambling to figure out how to put all these broken pieces back together.
And you can see the deep, deep divide right here. At the state level, you've got a bill that wants to strengthen property rights. It would basically redefine holdover tenants as squatters, which would let police remove them way faster. But then, at the local level, a city like Spokane is going in the total opposite direction, adding a mandatory 30-day delay before a landlord can even file for eviction, all to add more tenant protections.
So really, it all boils down to two narratives that just can't seem to coexist. One story says the system is full of vulnerable people who are one step away from homelessness and they need more protection. The other story says the system is being taken advantage of by bad actors and property owners need more power. The problem in Washington right now is that both of these stories seem to be true.
Which leaves us with a final, really difficult question. When a system that's designed to be a shield can also be used as a sword, how do you fix it? How do you rebalance the scales to protect the people who truly need it without creating loopholes for the few who might exploit it? There are just no easy answers here.
This is honestly one of the most tangled issues facing the state, and we really want to know what you think. Is there a middle ground here? Let us know your perspective down in the comments. And if you want to understand more of the critical topics shaping our world, please make sure to subscribe. Thanks for watching.